welcome back to the coldest side of the pillow. I have this weird little cough, and as I am going through this session, I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I may cough a little bit, but oh well, that's fine. I'm a human. This may not have to be perfect, but that's okay. So, welcome. Coldest side of the pillow. It's been a while. It has been a while. It's been a few years. I can't even remember the last episode that I had uploaded because the episodes that I did have uploaded actually don't exist anymore. So that is okay. I'm Dr. Gilbert Guzman, so I guess we'll call this episode 1 of the coldest side of the pillow. It's episode 1, 2025. We are back. I think the last time we spent some time together, I did not have my doctorate. I was finishing it. I was actually working on it. I don't think I was finishing it. I was in coursework, spending a little bit of time going through Deming's red bead experiment and so on. But I am here. Pretty excited to be back on the coldest side of the pillow, kind of upgraded a little bit. And, I'm here to kind of talk about topics and so on. So what has been going on in my life, I guess we'll spend a little bit of time there. And then whatever other topics I think we need to talk about, we'll do that. And the goal is to really create this podcast. I know everybody and their mom has a podcast. You don't even have to listen to the podcast if you don't want to. But I don't even really know what I want to talk about because when I think about the coldest side of the pillow, it's the best side of the pillow. You flip that thing over, it's cold. It just feels good, right? So that's the goal of the coldest side of the pillow is really make something feel good, make you think, make you kind of grow in your mind, grow in your mindset, the way you think, whatever it is, whether you want to become more rational, whether you want to learn about a topic that I'm researching, whatever that is what the coldest side of the pillow is. We don't focus on anything specific, but it'll be everything. Every now and again, the goal will be to have somebody else on here with me, spend a little bit of time kind of creating conversation and dialogue. And if I do that, I think I can be a little successful in here. So my thoughts are I will probably be a little bit shorter on this first episode, simply because I think spending a little bit of time and gathering the way I want to run the coldest side of the pillow is going to be most important. So wanted to get this out there. I know I had a few listeners here in the past and am excited to get some information back out there to you. So again, welcome to the coldest side of the pillow. So I got a topic I want to talk about. I know that I said I finished my doctorate and wanted to share kind of an experience that I've recently had or kind of been having, spending a little bit of time as kind of you finish this world of a doctorate, you you often get placed on this pedestal of, hey, you have a doctorate and so on. But truly, all it really does is help you read differently, understand things more objectively, and know that there is a wealth of knowledge out there in this world. And with this wealth of knowledge, you kind of gain this different level of thinking. And how do you want to find information? You look at things, whether it's your day-to-day job or even concepts and thoughts or topics within the broader world. What are these things? What is it that I want to do with this information that I have found? And how can I better add it to my life or better understand it, really? And I think that's one of the biggest things. So I've actually been spending a little bit of time with some peers out in the world that have also had doctorates. I guess that's one of the things that you do is you network a little bit and you create a group of people, colleagues, fellow students from my doctoral program, whatever that is. And you spend some time with them and you tend to have the same kind of thought process on things. And when you have that same type of thought process, you end up down these rabbit holes of conversation. So recently I've been spending a little bit of time with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Bill Bellows, who happens to have a PhD in mechanical engineering. And, spending some time with him, I found him by way of a podcast and he said, hey, reach out to me on LinkedIn. So I found him on LinkedIn and spent some time. And we've been having pretty strong discussion on Dr. W. Edwards Demings and really his philosophies, his theories, his frameworks and concepts that he created around the world of quality management or total quality management, if you will. And when we think about this world of quality, I've been spending some time with Bill because Dr. Deming has created this world of, he's no longer with us, but he's created this world of quality. He's created the 14 points of management, the system of profound knowledge, and so on, which was actually one of the frameworks. The system of profound knowledge was actually one of the frameworks that I had used in my dissertation, where I was really focusing on productivity and from the lens of not having enough people. So when you think about the world of, you know, what COVID did, or even the Great Resignation, and you know, even the kind of concept of quiet quitting, when you think about Dr. Deming and really that system of profound knowledge, there's a big gap when we talk about systems, and you know, my mind always goes to how things work and systems in and of themselves. And as I spent time researching Dr. Deming, and even spending time reading some of his books, some of his articles, he has great quotes that exist out there, and they're usually one-liners. You know, one of my favorite quotes is the quote of, "A bad system will be a human being, or will be a person every time." And I think about the world of productivity. How do we get the best out of people, right? But you can't really do that when it comes to the world of having a lacking workforce. And so as I work through my day-to-day in security and HR recruiting, um, most of everything is tied to a system. And I've been spending time with Bill, and we talk about some of the things that I'm dealing with at work. You know, he's very tenured, very experienced in his knowledge, and not only Deming, but just life in general, right? And so I use him and really identified him as a mentor, and giving me guidance on ways to think within not only my day to day, but even in concepts and topics that I'm researching. And so as I'm researching these things, and I'm talking to Bill about it, you know, everything drives down to systems and understanding systems. One of the biggest topics him and I have been talking about is, when we talk about quality, we talk about acceptability versus desirability. And this concept of acceptability versus desirability, primarily in the realm of quality, is what do we accept versus what do we desire, brings me to this world of really thinking about, what do we have in our organizations that exist today that say we're doing things right? You know, there's companies that exist today that live through the Deming philosophies, and Bill will call these Deming companies, or you know, kind of identifies, are you red pen versus the blue pen type of company. But when I think about Deming, he created the 14 points of management, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, in the system of profound knowledge. And when we think about that, organizations today are tied into KPIs. They're tied into the actual performance and performance management. And really, how do we turn a red box green? How do we make this box, you know, put a check mark in here? And usually there's a carrot that's tied to that, right? Sometimes there's a bonus, there's KPIs, there's metrics, and so on. And when we think about all of this, it's all going back to technology. And I have this really strong passion for technology. I care about productivity. I care about what humans mean in a given workforce. And when you align these things, whether it's KPIs, we go to Dr. Forrester, who is in a different field, but still focused on systems. We go back to this concept of fundamental attribution error, and it's really aligned with, and Dr. Deming and Dr. Forrester were kind of running in this parallel universe, if you will, and spending time together, or not really spending time together, but really somewhat focusing on what seems to be the same topics, but they never really worked on something together. But I say all that to say, because when I align systems, and I align systems thinking, quality, Deming, Force, or whatever that is, and we think about that fundamental attribution error today, we are so caught up in the world of data, so caught up in the world of KPIs and information, that we often think that performance of individuals, which can be aligned with productivity, is based on, really this willingness to work, right? As long as an individual is willing to work, we can assume that they're going to produce the highest level of outputs from the inputs that they do or are willing to provide. So when they're working, as long as they're willing to do so, which most of everybody, when we sign up for a job, I think we're probably willing to do so. It's interesting because people get tied up in the numbers themselves. And we often think that the number is, or the KPI or the data themselves are a true reflection of how a system is performing or how a system works. And when we think about systems, we're not thinking about a computer and how everything is plugged in, but we're thinking about everything in and of itself is a process and or a system. And when we think about a process and or a system, we have to understand how that system works. We have to appreciate the system. That's the first point of Dr. Deming's system of profound knowledge, is appreciation of systems. And when we think about these systems and the appreciation of them, that's understanding that there's subsystems within systems, there's subcomponents, there's other parts that make this system as a whole work. And there's a goal of this system. And most of the time, there are people who are required to be part of this system. And when you don't have enough people, or you don't have these willing workers, or you don't have effective individuals who are ultimately productive, right? You often blame those people. But what I've been seeing in the day to day in my job, and even from some of the research that I do, often our systems are broken. Often the systems are not set up correctly, because when I go back to Jay Forster, most of everything that we deal with, most of everything that we operate in is based on our mental models. These are what we have designed in our head, and somebody, whoever it is, whether it's a CTO, a CIO, a COO, somebody, an engineer, whatever that person is, they had this idea, this thought of a process, this thought of a best practice, this thought of a system in their mind, and they rolled it out. They created it. They tried to put it on paper. They tried to develop it. And when that happens, there's limitations to that. There's limitations to those mental models. And as I've been obviously kind of really deep into the work of Deming, I've also looked on the outside on, what are some of these other things that exist that maybe I can align with each other and come up with ideas. So lately at work, we've been dealing with a lot of what I'll call transformation. A lot of, as every other company is doing, we're providing or including or inserting and integrating some fashion of artificial intelligence or AI. And as we're doing this, there's an opportunity to make sure that things work correctly, right? Jacob Stoller released a book. His most recent book is called Reimagining Productivity. And Jacob Stoller, it's a great book. And as you read through that, one concept that stuck out to me the most is tech omnipotence. And that's really thinking about technology as being our savior, technology as being this kind of this strength to help fill in some of the gaps of whether it's productivity, whether it's profitability, whatever those gaps are. There's a lot of this dependency on AI and even technology as a whole. And as I worked on my dissertation, thinking about all of these topics and so on, thinking about systems as a whole, understanding that humans are usually a very strong component within a system. You got to have human judgment. You got to have people doing the work. Not everything can be truly automated. It makes me truly think about some of the challenges that we have in work today, really. Really thinking about what do we have in work? What do we do every day? Why are we waking up and going to do this? If we think about it, there's people who are overworking themselves. They're burning out. They're doing things that are going to exist tomorrow. I can think about when I was a store manager at Kroger and how many times I would work on trying to clean a back room or trying to fix a certain area, and you had limitations because the day will always end. And when those days end, you obviously cannot spend the time trying to fix everything, whether it's yourself or so on. But that is truly based on the limitations of the systems, which we often forget is not the person's fault. If you remember, if you ever listened to me and we spoke about Deming's red bead experiment, and I'll challenge you to watch the video. Just go ahead and Google or YouTube W. Edwards Deming's red bead experiment. If you watch the video, whether it's the abbreviated version or the full version, you'll see that there's limitations in performance of individuals simply because the system is not set up correctly. We want zero defects. We want things to be perfect, and we assume that they will be because there was a professional, there was somebody who is great, highly tenured at their organization, whatever that is. We assume that their expertise and knowledge is going to be, and the way they develop the system is going to be the end all be all. It's going to be the Bible. But we know that when we think about the system of profound knowledge, you have the understanding of knowledge and really psychology even, and the way people operate, the way people perform. All of these things are limited, and they don't necessarily and won't always align with the performance of a system. And so when we think about all of this, and I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but that's okay. That's the purpose of a podcast, really. And I'm actually freestyling this thing. I don't even have anything written down from a topic. I'm just going off the top of my head and almost venting a little bit, because I've spent so much time looking. It took me 4 years to finish my doctorate. And I still read today, still write today, still research today. I spent so much time understanding these things, and it really opened my mind objectively that everything has a limitation, even because of the way things are developed. And even if you went to Chat GPT today and you tried to type in a topic, or if you tried to tell it to do something, it is still going to be limited to some degree based on the data that it has in which it generates some of these responses on, or because of some of the coding prohibits it from being able to do so, right? If you said, hey, hack the Pentagon, do X, Y, and Z, and shoot a nuke off, it's not going to do that. But that's simply because someone, its creator or creators, limited its capabilities. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, every system that we operate in is done that exact same way. And so I wanted to put this quick episode together and really get everybody's mind going, because these are some of the topics that I will talk about. We won't spend a whole bunch of time focusing on systems and Deming and system dynamics and Forrester, Jacob Staller. We won't spend a whole bunch of time on the coldest side of the pillow simply talking about that, but at least get your mind going. Think about, what do I do today at work, at home, whatever that is, that I'm limited in? Right? You're only as good as the system that you operate in. And do we understand the way that system was developed? Because most people, when you teach them a job, when you teach them a role, they operate at the capability or the capacity in which they were taught. Most of the time, there are people who challenge the status quo, but most of the time they only operate at the capacity in which they were taught. Most people don't know the beyond that they can achieve. Most people don't go above and beyond, right? Whether they have discretionary effort or not. Most people are limited in even their thinking and how do systems work? How does this work? Do I challenge this? Because we're usually chasing the carrot. We're usually chasing that promotion. So we want to fall in line with the expectations and rules. But when we think about the expectations of rules and so on, sometimes those are limiting factors to our overall and true potential performance, or overall performance rather. So wanted to kind of get your mind going a little bit. Welcome back to the coldest side of the pillow. Pretty excited to be here. We should have some of these episodes rolling out, as many as I can. I'm not going to put out a schedule right now because I'm a busy guy myself, but welcome back to the coldest side of the pillow. It's been a pleasure. Talk to you all later.